is there any other kind of design? If there's no user-centric, if you're not doing user-centric design, then what are you designing for? Then there is Jason Fry from Basecamp who says set 37 signals that you design to solve your own niche.
Right, and Jason, he's absolutely right, and Apple does it. I don't think Apple uses user-centric design either. So, I mean, I'm sure there are various kinds of designs, but I have come across 3 or 4. The first is sort of, how would I put it, unintended design. So, which is, let's do something, ho jayega. You're blindfolded, if you throw 100 darts, one of them might hit the bullseye. That is the kind of approach you are. Let's just go with the flow, we'll see what happens. So design is not necessarily an intended consequence, it is unintended sort of consequence. Sometimes it will work, sometimes, most of the time it will. The second is, which Jason Fry and Steve Jobs does brilliantly, is called genius design. Genius design means, see, and anybody can become genius design. You have had 20 years, 15, 20 years of experience immersed in the field of design. So if somebody gives you a problem, okay, I want to make a new music here, I want to make a new sculpture, you know what you want. So you don't necessarily go and talk to the users or the audience and all that. And but there's a lot of context and a lot of experience involved with genius design. And the recent Signals guys, I mean, they were actually consulting, design consultancy firm before they moved on to create these great products. So they had that instinct. If you have that instinct, genius design will work. Then another one is called activity focused, which is probably sort of what we did for Delco Green, I would think roughly. So you want to create a product, software, artifact for some problem. See, this is a campaign for people to submit their environmental friendly ideas and how to recycle gadgets and how they reuse their gadgets. So that is it. So what is the kind of steps they are going to take? That is something we will decide internally. That okay, first they have used the gadget, they're sort of little techno savvy, and they will go to the site, they will look at it, they will submit their problem, what problem they're solving, photographs, etc. So you can discrete set of steps, discrete set of activities, and you take each activity, design for that, and then you can go to the user and see if it works or not. User-centered design is you are actually, it's more participation. That I say, okay, I don't know everything, so that is the default assumption you have. That you know more than I do because you will ultimately use the software. So initially you go and sort of ethnography studies, you go observe users, what is going on with them, talk to them, interviews, spend some time with them, and actually have what we call participatory design, in which you get users, 7, 8 users, and design team together and say, okay, we want to create X. So they all sketch, oh no, I think I would like that and I like that. So that is user-centered design. And in terms of success rate, when you have design in an organization, there are a lot of things that you want to look for. Like people, you have culture, you have the team management, management buy-in, executive buy-in. Then you talk about the process. User-centered design probably has the highest chance of succeeding. Of course, you have somebody like Steve Jobs, Jason Fry, then yes, genius design might work. Then there is the whole notion of, is it an evolutionary design or revolutionary design? Are you there for improving a current product? User-centered design will work brilliantly. But if it's, you want to launch something out of the blue, nobody has ever seen it, the users don't know what exists, what user-centered design is there, then you're better off doing what Apple does. So it's not one over the other, it's really about what the team is, what is comfortable, and what are you actually trying to do.
Okay. So why don't you take us through the process of user-centric design? So how do you start with, how do you go on from there, in the context of designing websites, in the context of designing software, because that's what you mostly do, and that's what we also mostly do. So what's the process? How do you start? What are the considerations you bring in? How often do you iterate? What are the different kinds of steps in the process?
Okay. So it's fairly standard. I don't think there is something new in the process as such. Everybody has user-centered design, most of the consulting companies do it. It's really it differentiates in 2 aspects. How deep you want to go. That obviously depends on
how
the budget
exactly.
and the timeline you have for for the client dictates. And the second is how often you iterate. I think the iteration ka part is so important, people overlook it, and the 37 Signal guys do it brilliantly also. Is that, we have this one notion internally we have, is fail fast. Don't spend 3 months, I will come to the process, but I just want to give a larger picture first. You don't spend 3 months coming up with a design and then see whether it works or not. Take 1 week, come up with something, crap even, test it, come back, redesign. So like if you have 4 shorter cycles in 3 months, it's far better than 1 or 2 cycles over 3 months. So that is, iteration is key in a Centric Design process. Second, I would think is very important is having a multidisciplinary kind of a team. So if everybody from DC and everybody has gone to an hour, I don't think it'll work out. So you have people like in our team, we have architects, we have visual designers, graphic designers, fine arts, engineers, and psychologists. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I think these two or three aspects are very important. Then let's come to the steps. And it's very similar to any, I think, problem-solving exercise, or even anybody. We do analysis, design, prototype, and test. Some people say discover, define, design, build. Okay. Kind of analogous to each other. So analysis, maybe understand the context, or more simply put, we try to define the problem. A lot of times we feel people just jump into design so quickly without even articulating the right problem. And if you don't define the right problem, you won't have the right solution.
So that's part of what happened with Delco Green.
That's it. So we'll hear that a little bit. So the thing is, so analysis may it's UCD, user centered design. We'll talk more specifically in that. So in which the first thing is to understand if there is an existing product. If there is, so what are the strengths and weaknesses? Why does the client want to redesign the product, if at all? So I'm sure that there has been some thought that product has been in existence. If they have to redesign it, which means there is a client base and there is a demand. May not be adequate demand, but there is. So to understand what are the strengths and weaknesses, we do heuristic evaluation for the product. Who are the competitors? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? We do observation, ethnography if needed. We actually go there, sit with the users and say, okay, we'll not interrupt, we are kind of fly on your shoulder, we just observe what you're doing. So we'll say, then we start to take snapshots, and based on what they show us, we do interviews, okay, what did you find useful, what not, what else do you think the software should have, what the design should have.
So if it's like a website, you actually go sit with existing users and see how they use the website.
Correct.
And what is the time?
Some sort of, if we can't, then we do interviews, remote, we call them, or some sort of exercise to understand what is, we know what the business is saying to us, but we don't know what users are saying. And there usually is a big disconnect. Business is saying, we want to add 5 functionality to it. We go there and say, don't need this 5 functionality here. All they want is your